Well, good morning. I called you Dr. Demilla and you said you are not. You are not yet, and I said you deserve to be one. um, so thank you so much for joining us and just taking the time, to share your work with us, which really has been amazing. So you've got an app called Angula, and you've got now, the latest hit, which is my Mahlahle. But we'd first like to just hear about you and how you came about even thinking about this, about languages and creating language apps. How, like, what was your process? What led you to that? Because you could have created other apps, and not for languages.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm a big admirer of your work.
Thank
Uh,
you.
following
Appreciate it.
for quite some time. So
Sorry?
no, I'm saying I've been following it for quite some time. So
Thank you. We follow you as just as much. Thank you.
yeah, I do hope to be a doctor someday, but for now, it's still just very domain. Yeah, so I come from a small village in Limpopo called Minga. That's where I was born. The language spoken there is Xitsonga. We do neighbor with Venda speaking communities, so there's a bit of mixture of Xitsonga and Tshivenda in my childhood. But the first time I actually started learning Tshivenda was when I went to boarding school when I was doing grade 11 and grade 12. There we had Tshivenda because it was somewhere close to Twando, but there was also a bit of Sepedi as well. And this was for the very first time where I was starting to to feel left out of conversations because of a language barrier. But I did go to school in Pretoria, the University of Pretoria, where I studied multimedia, which is a mixture of computer science and design. And so for if everything went according to plan, I was supposed to be working in some big bank somewhere, building software. But one of the things that I noted during my time at the university was that my own language was not well represented in the digital space. So being somebody who at the time had the skills to build a basic website, I felt maybe I could build something that would at least give some representation to the Xitsonga language online. So I created my very first website was called Gazankulu Online, later changed to Tsonga Online, which was basically a dictionary for the Xitsonga
I think
language.
I might have come across it. I think sometimes when I'm looking for like a Sitsonga translation or
Yeah.
just to see, because on our website, I wish we could employ people from every language, so that there's representation, of all the indigenous languages. And so I'm very limited, and I've never lived in Johannesburg, for example, where it's like a melting pot of all the languages. Um, so it's sometimes it's hard to maybe keep pestering people to find or to translate something or to maybe say it in maybe Tsonga or Sepedi. Sometimes, just want to maybe find a proverb, and then I look, and I know that I've come across your website.
Wow. Yeah, that was my first website. I'm keen to actually hear what your impression of the website was.
Well, I think you should continue because I think the more there's presence, presence, because people are always looking, and there's someone who is actually trying to encourage Indigenous language speaking people to actually write, to have websites where people record information in the Indigenous languages because there's a shortage of that. Um, so I think it's very impressive, and you were ahead of your time, in ensuring that. And there's something about that for me that I also find where underrepresented language groups fight harder online, and for me are a model in some ways of how other language groups, even the bigger ones, can actually model after the underrepresented groups, language groups that are
Yeah.
less known. Because it's like that passion to, like I sometimes watch the Isindebele activists who are
Yeah.
really passionate about pushing it, and they kind of push it as a movement and as a group because they feel like there's no Isindebele in schools, there's no Isindebele just schools, period, where they feel like they can be taught in Isindebele. They just get grouped with other Nguni languages, like, oh, you can just study Siswati, or you can just study isiZulu. And yet there's this nuances that they feel, within their language they would like to keep that. And I really admire that because I feel it's because it's part of this elevation of indigenous languages around the world, because people don't understand that when one language is lost, you lose a way of thinking, you lose a way of it's like philosophies that are within that group. It's not just about, oh, let's just all just merge and be one group. Yes, we are one group in actual fact, because the more I learn the languages, and I find that, oh, that word is actually not too far away from this Xhosa. It's just the certain sound is just shifted, and if we actually noticed how tiny the differences are, because they're actually smaller differences, and the differences are just sounds in many
Yeah.
ways of, oh, okay, oh, we actually speaking the same language. And for me, apps like this, they really help because we don't always have someone whom we have access to directly, or a friend we can talk to. And so now you create one by creating an app where you can, even if you're thinking of something midnight, you can directly go and learn. And now tell us about how Angular came about and how it's doing now.
Yeah, so with the success of the Xitsonga project, because that was just for one language, people wanted us to do a bit more and include other languages. So the idea of Angula was born. Angula is a Xitsonga word. It means to have your say or to reply. So a statement released by, say, a company in response to something is called Nwangulo, which is derived from the word Angula. So it's in and around
Lwangulo,
Nwangulo.
Ngwangulo.
Yeah, which is a statement that a company or a government department release
Oh, I
response.
see.
Yes.
Like a press release, maybe?
Yeah, press release, yes. But it has to be in response to something. Yeah, because the word is in and around, just having your say in response to important matters happening in and around you. Yeah, so the idea
So,
was,
for example, today we've had, Justice Meyer is the president announced that Justice Meyer is going to be the Chief Justice from 1st of September. And so, as Indigenous language people, we really excited because she champions
yes,
Indigenous languages within the judiciary. So this is a breakthrough for that. So I'm just thinking in connection to Ngwangula,
Nwangulo.
Ngwangulo, that
Yeah,
would be our Ngwangulo
yes,
to, that we have to release.
the response to what just happened. Yeah, so the
Yes.
idea was to build a website, an app that can allow people, empower them to have their say in any African language of their choice. So the vision is certainly much bigger than the languages that we currently have now. We have plans to expand to the rest of the continent. But how it works is we've partnered with I think close to 80 people playing various roles. So some people were responsible for designing the course. Other people were responsible for translations, proofreading, and recordings as well. So it was quite
Big
project.
project.
Yeah, I think trying to manage so many people, speak so many different languages, and doing this on the side because I do have a like full-time job was quite an undertaking, but
Wow.
it's quite exciting
Well,
for
it's a
us.
very important undertaking, you know, it's really, really, yeah, it's great, especially from somebody who's, because sometimes you have big companies like from overseas who try and do this. And so it's really important for us, you know, to do it for our own languages. And that's what you're doing because you understand the culture, the context, and, and relating to others and bringing people on board and sometimes when you have people who are maybe coming from outside, they might not understand some of the nuances and they might just, not notice if there's, an error and maybe, so I really think it's important that we have like homegrown apps like what you've done. And so then did you now transition then from Angular? So was it like easier for you to start Mahlahle?
Yeah, it's Mahlahle. That is my daughter's name. It's the Xitsonga word for planet Venus or the morning star. So it's quite a popular name for schools. I think there are 3 or 4 schools I'm aware of that are named Mahlahle. Yeah. So yeah, I think it was.
So it's a popular star in
Yeah,
your
yeah.
okay, that's
One of the
great.
stars. Yeah, I think I mean for back home because it's in the rural areas and there's no like city lights. A lot of people are quite familiar with the stars. There's a lot of symbolism around them as well. So I grew up knowing. I didn't learn it later on in life that there's a star called Mahlahle. This is something I grew up knowing. And there are other ones like Shirimela, Gongomela. But what I did learn later on was which of the planets it actually refers to. Because for us, it was just stars up in the sky.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. And so how old is your daughter?
She's turning 3 in September.
So was it inspired by her?
Yes, it was. She's actually struggled with speech. It's developing a little bit late. So I saw a need to at least try use all the resources that we can, including speech therapy, also apps such as this to help build a vocabulary. So yeah, so certainly yeah, an inspiration. Yeah, but the app itself was I think a lot easier to work on compared to the
Because
main
it was
app.
the second F, because you'd already known what challenges, what to anticipate. Yeah.
Yeah, all of the infrastructure was already there. All of the contacts were there. We had ironed out a lot of the processes. And I think, I mean, you mentioned about outside companies coming into Africa to build this kind of apps for us. One of the things that they miss is the socio-economic conditions here in South Africa, and that's never factored in the way that they approach building content and working with either somebody who narrates or does proofreading or translate. And that's one of the things that I'm glad we were able to iron out quite well with the Angula app, and we're able to use the same process for the Mahlahle app. So for instance, for recordings, one of the things I worried about, because I'm based in Cape Town right now, is
Oh, okay.
if I found a studio here in Cape Town, it would exclude a lot of people who would be able to participate in this process to do recordings. If it was in Joburg, that also excludes a lot of people. So what we ended up doing was to build an app so that anyone, anywhere, including people that were outside the country, could participate in building this type of content.
Wow. So you built an app for the app. Is that what you did?
Yeah, so yeah, we do have 2 internal apps that one is used for the generation of the text content, and then the other is used for recordings.
Wow. Um, And I'm looking forward to actually having a look at Mahlahle because I saw it's quite a hit. And I can understand why, because a lot of parents, and one of the things that we try to encourage is for language transfer, and it's a really big thing, where especially middle class Black people, there's a loss of language that's kind of currently taking place in the middle class, and children are losing their language and they're not able to speak their languages, their home languages. They speak English, especially in Cape Town. Does your child speak Chiven? It's song.
Yeah, since I'm like I mentioned, she's struggling to develop her speech, so it's a bit slow, but she does know a few words. I think she
Especially
knows.
now they just got an app. But I
Yeah,
just know that most middle class in Cape Town, they children do not speak Indigenous languages. They usually just speak English, and they say it's because they are in an English dominant environment.
yeah.
Um, versus, but I don't know in Joburg if it's as prevalent because there's some, I feel like Joburg is privileged because they have access to so many languages of this country that they can just like your ear can get used to it, even if you're just walking maybe in the mall. Whereas in other spaces, either you just hear one language that's being spoken or two. Unlike Joburg, where it's like multiple languages, and you can see, how they sound, because
Yeah.
that's also important. Which is why your app is important. Do you use village grannies by any chance? And grandfathers in your app for
Um,
storytelling and for Mahlahle, because they would be really precious for language preservation and really getting the, almost like the have you thought about that, or are you already doing it?
yeah, so on storytelling, I mean, we don't have storytelling per se. There is another
Yet.
I'm part of called Round the Fire, which is storybooks for kids. It's available
Wow.
in all the 11 official languages. So I think that's where all of the energy around African stories and storytelling is going into. But on the Mahlahle
It's
app,
called Around the Fire, that one.
yeah, Round the Fire.
Okay. Okay. And is it South African or African, or is it just general?
It's currently with South African languages, but also with plans to expand to other parts of the continent. But for now, it's mainly just South African languages. So on the Mahlahle app and the Angula app, we did work with someone from a grandmother from the Northern Cape for Khoi Khoi.
Mm.
And she she's somebody who did the narrations. Her husband did the translations. So it was quite an interesting collaborative effort from their side. And when I've had conversations with her, she did allude to what you're talking about now around like storytelling as another aspect that should be included in the app. But I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories that I can tell in and around the recordings and who was involved. But I think the one that keeps ringing in my head was there's a guy in Venda, his name is Pumuzo. He did the Chivenda narrations. And one of the things that we did, as I mentioned, is we built the app so that we could include virtually anyone who wanted to participate. But what I didn't think of is that having a quiet space in South Africa is a luxury that not
Wow.
everyone can get
Sure.
off. Yeah, not everyone can get an hour off where it's quiet. You can sit with a
Especially
smartphone.
in the township.
Yeah. So even in the villages, in his case, it was a dog barking outside. So he sent me a recording of that and said, I'll need to finish tomorrow. There's a dog barking outside. It's nothing I can do. So,
I usually have chickens going, doo-doo-doo, getting recordings. Yeah. So what's the most exciting thing that you've experienced during this, I know you've had quite a lot of media excitement with Mahlahle. What's been the most surprising thing for you that you didn't see coming about it?
Yeah, I think just the excitement around the app. I mean, normally with apps, you launch the first one, which is normally called the beta because you're still testing it out, which is the case with the Mahlahle app. So you typically don't think that it's going to attract as much attention as this app did. So yeah, I was quite surprised by that. And I was trying to
It's
look
like having a hit song.
yeah, out of nowhere. Bit scary in a sense that if you don't have the processes in place, one, to be able to respond to inquiries quickly, because a lot of people will be trying to reach out in a very short space of time. That can be a problem. If we don't have a streamlined way of dealing with support issues, because it's a beta app, it's still new, it's bound to have one or two issues. So you want to ensure that you respond quickly to those kind of things. So I was quite nervous that it can be sort of a hit in terms of the number of eyeballs on it, but I wanted to ensure that we are able to take care of the customer. We can respond to their queries. We can address any issues that they raise timely. So I think we were quite lucky that nothing fell off. It's quite, everything's still intact. I mean, with systems, when you build them with scale in mind. So if I'm expecting 1,000 users, I'll prepare for 1,000 users. And in this case, we got way more than we expected, but we were quite fortunate that it kept on going. The system didn't shut down in any way.
So do you think schools can use them as well, or is it like what did you design it for? Did you use? Did you design it for parents to for their children, or what was the aim when you did Mahlahle?
Yeah, this is for parents. The way that we're thinking of it is a guided experience. So we don't expect kids to sit alone and do this. We want parents to sit with their children to guide them through the app. So it does allow for multiple profiles. So if you have multiple children, you can just have one account and they can each have a profile there, and you can guide them through the content. We are working on features for schools so that they can have an experience as well. So some of the features that we're thinking of is for them to manage students, for them to see marks on the evaluation lessons, for them to see stats for how long their students are spending on the app, areas where maybe they're struggling with the vocabulary and so forth. So that's coming later in the year.
Wow, is that going to be a separate app? That one for education? Is that going to be a separate app, or it's just going to be inbuilt in Mahlahle?
It will be inbuilt in the current app, but the dashboard for teachers, obviously, that would be a separate app that only they have access to.
Wow, this is amazing. There was one more question that I had regarding. Do you have any further developments that you are looking into doing with Mahlahle, or you just like are you going to develop? Because it's from 3 years old to 8. Is that correct? 8 years
Yes.
old, from 3 to 8. Are you going to maybe increase it to further, or you're just going to keep it like that and then maybe develop a separate app for slightly older children? Or is it, or yeah, what are you once they graduate from
Yeah.
Mahlahle?
Yeah, this is an issue we're discussing internally because the main app starts from age 16 going up, and this one goes up to 8. So we have a gap of 8 years in between. But we will either be lowering the age a little bit on the main app, maybe also increase the age limit on the kids app a little bit. We do have a ton of features that are going to be published quite soon. So as I mentioned, this was the test version. This was just to ensure that all of the processes that we need to build on top of are actually in place. So what we're currently working on now, and you can tell me what you think about this, is a feature that is targeted at getting kids familiar with family praises.
That's
Yes.
great. That's very clever.
Yeah, so the idea is to get as little as possible information from about the child. So this would be their name, the name of the mother, the father, grandfather, and grandmother, and then the family or clan they belong to. And then we can stitch that up into recordings that we're going to do for all the various families or clans of the different cultures around South Africa. And then that should produce a video that would be animated to look like your child, essentially. Yeah, so that's what we are working on currently.
Oh, that's very impressive. You're really doing amazing work because that also connects the child to their cultural context, because language also has a context, has a culture. Wow, very, very exciting. So thank you so much for taking the time. And the other thing about both your apps, they really have the most beautiful pictures. They have really, really beautiful pictures. So well done to you and your team for the beautiful work that you're doing. You almost wish it could be like a movie or something, like an animated movie. You could, it looks like it could become characters,
Yeah.
that maybe could even be sold one day, as collectors, for children to collect. So thank you so much, because I think it really helps children also to be proud of their cultures, because it also connects them to other cultures so that they're not isolated. And even if they're overseas and they're South African, they can still feel like, oh, this is, and start learning the various languages that belong to them, to their personal language, but also the languages, because they're all part of the same family of South African languages. And our languages are also becoming very popular outside of South Africa because of Amapiano. So I've seen quite a lot of people on TikTok who are not even South African, never even been here, and they're learning our languages. And I sometimes feel like what's going to happen is that, and some of them can even pronounce Xhosa, like difficult words that even South Africans can't pronounce, they're so good. So I think your app is also, I'm sure it's used overseas, and the people who are using it overseas are not necessarily South African. They're just people who want to learn our languages and who are passionate about this culture that they see on social media. So, do you have any last words that you want to send to people who either are using your apps or should be using your apps?
Yeah, no, maybe before I go to my apps, I just wanna also state that there are incredible people in this space doing great work, other entrepreneurs who are building stuff around AI to ensure that our
Can
languages
you
like
can you name a few maybe so that we
yes,
can look out for them?
is Chido. It's the name of the founder. She's working on Vambo AI, which is intelligence for African languages. Is Mukundi. That's the name of the founder.
I've seen Cheeto, but what does she actually do? Cheeto and Vimbo. I've seen it, but I haven't quite. Is it
Yes.
like also all African languages, or
Yeah, so they
it's
have
not really connected to South Africa, right?
yeah, I think it's a little bit broader than South Africa, but it
Mm.
has, I think, most of the African languages that are official here in South Africa as AI agents that you can chat to, ask questions. You can ask it in Xitsonga, it will be able to reply in Xitsonga. You can ask it in English and tell it to reply in Xitsonga, it will do the same. You can translate,
Wow.
create images. Yeah, there's it's a really beautiful platform that they are working on. And there's
Is that
also
Vambo?
yeah,
Is that
Vambo,
mm.
VAMBO.ai. And then there's Mukundi. She's working on Ambani, which is a little bit in our space as well. So we are competing in that space, I guess. But they're doing wonderful work as well, building learning experiences, gamified learning experiences for kids. And there's other people as well. I mean, the list is quite long.
Endless?
Yeah. But for anybody
That,
using, sorry, can go for it?
oh no, I said that's exciting. It'd be great to maybe host you and them, and maybe together we just
Yeah.
have a conversation with the various people that are in the space, just to see, you know, also to inspire other people out there that language, there is a market and technology, and just to see where things are going on the continent using our languages, you know.
And I think that would be yeah, amazing. Definitely. I have conversations with them offline, but I think something that in a public space like this would certainly
Would love that.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, and then sorry, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. So I think for people using our work, just to say that we have quite a lot coming up later in the year. We have a lot more languages that we'll be adding, a lot more features on both apps that we'll be working on. And if anyone wants to participate in helping us build the software or the content itself, you can reach out. You can go to Angula.app and contact us from there. We're always looking for people either to do recordings or translations or proofreading, any type of work within the language space would be appreciated.
Okay. You know, you can always reach out to us if you need us to spread a word about people in the language space who want to make a contribution, and we can just always blast it, and
Yeah,
sometimes you'll get a bigger response than you want.
yeah.
but but just give us a shout whenever you need maybe a specific language or whatever. We're here.
Okay. No, I'll certainly reach out because the next phase, we're going to redo the course. So we're looking for new people to redesign the course. So no, I'll reach out soon.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Dumela, who says you're not yet Dr. Dumela. Thank you so much, and congratulations on your very successful apps. And of course, we're particularly excited, just as you know, everyone was downloading Mahlahle especially for language transfer, because this is like a huge need. And you've obviously hit the mark, and it's obviously a huge need for many parents to finally have something, you know, accessible for them where they can teach and connect with their children. So thank you so much for that, and all the best. And we're looking forward to the more that's coming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.